Hello students, how are you? So for today in this video for class 7th I'm going to start the new chapter, that is respiration in organisms. And in the previous video I have completed the chapter soil. I discussed its answers. So I hope you have watched all the videos of that chapter, you have made the notes and you have completed the exercise on your own. If you have not, then whatever the chapters that had been done in the videos that are being uploaded on the channel, then you have to do that. Okay, so today let's start a very important topic, respiration in organisms. First question arises, why do we respire? All the living organisms are made up of small microscopic units called the cells. Okay, you must know first thing that cell is the basic unit of life. Whatever the processes that are going on in our body, for them the basic thing is cell, because all the things are going on at the level of the cell. Whatever the function our body is performing, for example, if I say digestion, if in digestion I say what is digestion, how do digestion takes place? When different types of cells secrete different types of enzymes, they help in digestion of food. So ultimately everything is based on the cell, structure of cell and the function of the cell. So that's why the cell, the definition of the cell is, it is the structural and functional unit of life. Very important definition, structural and functional unit of life. Okay, so all the living organisms are made up of small microscopic units called the cells. Microscopic means they are only visible through the microscopes. You can't see the cells with the help of naked eyes. Okay, they are so small, so these are microscopic units. These cells have different functions to perform in these organisms, such as digestion, respiration, transportation and excretion. Now for example, if we talk about human body, then you know that there are different types of organ systems. But if I say, how is organ system made of? Our organ system is made up of different types of organs. Okay, but again I say, how is organ made of? What is organ made of? Then you can say organ is made up of definitely different types of tissues. And what are tissues made up of? Tissue is a group of similar cells. So ultimately everything is related to that cell. Okay, so these performs different types of function like digestion, respiration, transportation, excretion, all are because of cells. They are different kind of cell. Each and every cell has its own function and different. It may be same or it may be different. Okay, so this is what, that all living organisms are made up of small microscopic units called the cells. The cells have different functions to perform like digestion, respiration and excretion. And one more important thing is that you know that all the functions are coordinated. Means, for example, if I say that if digestion is taking place, is it so that the respiration is affected? No. Or we can say the heartbeat is affected? No. If we are taking the breathe, we can say if we are taking air inside us, we are breathing in, okay, inhaling the air, then does it happen that the heartbeat stops? No, heartbeat is working, excretion is working. So these are functions that are completely coordinated with each other. And who controls them? Definitely the brain. Okay, similarly if we talk our body, that is brain, what is the brain of the cell called? It is called the nucleus. Okay, now these cells are performing different functions. Absolutely, if they are performing these functions, they need energy. This is the basic thing. See, because without energy these cells cannot perform their function. They need that energy. Okay, so next point, the cells can perform this function only if they get the energy to do so. Hence all living organisms need food which gives them the required energy. Definitely every organism needs food. What happens to the food that goes in our body? It goes into the stomach, it gets digested in the stomach, and then it gets digested in the intestine. It gets absorbed in the intestine and reaches the blood, the whatever the part, protein, carbohydrate, fats, etc. Then what happens? The blood circulates that food particles, or you can say the important part that are needed of that in the whole body, and it circulates it to different parts, or you can say different cells, whichever the cell needs. Like for example, if cell is working, and it definitely will need energy, because after continuously working, the amount of oxygen in it decreases and amount of carbon dioxide increases. So the amount of food also decreases, because it will continue consume that food, because it will need energy to work. Okay, so this is a basic, that cells can perform this function only if they get the energy to do so. Hence all living organisms need food which give them required energy. The energy present in the food gets released when the organism respire or breathe. very important. The energy present in the food gets released when the organism respire or breathe. Okay, because respiration, you know that with the help of respiration oxygen is consumed in, okay, it is oxygen is taken in, and oxygen plays a very important role in this process. Okay, now we will discuss how that food helps us in gaining the energy. We have talked it a lot about that food gives us energy, food gives us energy, but how does that food gives us energy? As we breathe, we take in the air that contains oxygen. Okay, so I told you that we breathe in oxygen. As we breathe, we take in air that contains oxygen in it and breathe out air which contains carbon dioxide. The oxygen, when transported to our cells, helps in breaking down the food and we get energy. Very important. What happens? See, oxygen through our nose reaches our lungs. From their lungs, the oxygen get exchanged to the blood. The oxygen is also in the blood now, and I told you from the small intestine the food is also in the blood. So both the components are in the blood. Now, for example, the blood goes to the cell. For example, X, if this is a cell, name of the cell is X, to that the blood goes. Now if does not have food and oxygen, what it will do? The diffusion process will take place and the food and the blood and the oxygen will be transported to the cell. Now inside the cell there will be certain metabolic activities that will help the cell to break down the food with the help of oxygen. So this oxygen that is being transported, it plays a very important role in breaking down the food, and ultimately because of the breaking of the food we get energy. Okay, so how food helps us gaining in energy? It is not that food alone, we require oxygen for that purpose also. That's why what I said in starting, that all these functions are completely coordinated, they are going hand to hand. Okay, you can see the respiration is completely a different process, digestion is completely a different process, but end product, that how do we get energy, it is a culmination, or you can say contribution of both of the processes. Okay, so how food helps us gaining in energy, I hope it is clear to you. Read this and then we will be moving forward. So I hope students the basic introduction is clear to all of you. Let's move forward. Next topic is, what is cellular respiration? Cellular respiration can be defined as the process in which the food that we eat is broken down inside the cells, which results in the release of energy. All the cells in the living organisms undergo cellular respiration. Now, as the term suggests, cellular respiration means the respiration process that is going inside the cells. Okay, see, what do we consider? Whenever we say that respiration in organism, then we always consider respiration to be just breathing in and breathing out. No, it is not that. Now I hope it is clear to you, the respiration is more than that. It is about obtaining the energy from the food, because it is not only limited to that you breathe in oxygen and you breathe out carbon dioxide. No, the oxygen that you breathe in goes to the cell and it helps in the breakdown of the food. Okay, so that's why the name, that is cellular respiration, that the respiration process that is going out at the cell or going in, taking place at the cellular level, at the cell level. Okay, if I compare again, I say that if I am saying respiration, that it does not mean only breathing in or breathing out, it is just breathing. If I just say that air inhale or exhale, then it is breathing. But if I say respiration, then it is more than that. Okay, so it can be defined again as the process in which food that we eat is broken down inside the cells, which results in the release of energy. All the cells in the living organisms undergo cellular respiration. Now, the cellular respiration takes place in a cell organelle called mitochondria. Because see students, mitochondria, it is known as the powerhouse of the cell. Okay, powerhouse of the cell means that it produces the energy for the various activities that are required to perform for the cell. Because definitely all the functions that will be performed by the cell, it will require energy. For example, the cell is performing digestion, cell is performing respiration, cell is performing excretion. All these processes require energy. So where does that energy come from? It comes from mitochondria. Okay, so that's why it is known as the powerhouse of the cell. Now as the name suggests, powerhouse of the cell means it gives power to the cell. Power in the terms of energy, in the sense of energy for performing various kinds of function. Okay, so the cellular respiration takes place in a cell organelle called mitochondria, and you must remember that mitochondria is known as the powerhouse of the cell. Okay, the oxygen that an organism breathes in reacts with the carbohydrate. Carbohydrate, for example, glucose. Okay, carbohydrate is a big group. Glucose is the example of an carbohydrate present in the food and results in the release of carbon dioxide, water, and energy. Very important. When the glucose reacts with oxygen, okay, see again the role of oxygen comes. How does it break? Previously we talked about how food helps in gaining energy. I told you that oxygen breaks down the food. Now we will talk about how does it break down that food. Okay, because food, in that food there are various type of components. One of those component is carbohydrate, we all know. So that oxygen that an organism breathes in, it reacts with carbohydrates present in the food and results in the release of carbon dioxide, water, and energy. So finally, see what will happen. Water will be utilized by the cell. Carbon dioxide, it will be released by the cell, because carbon dioxide is not importance. So it will be released by the cell. It will come in the blood. Ultimately from blood it will reach to lungs, and after we will be exhaling it. Okay, and remaining energy that is utilized by the cell for its own use. Okay, so this is what happens at the cellular level. Means the respiration process, that at the cellular level what happens, the oxygen that we breathe in and the food that goes to the cell, they both react. For example, I say a component of food that is carbohydrate, it reacts with oxygen, it breaks to form carbon dioxide, water, and energy. Carbon dioxide is released, water is used, and energy, as I told you, it is used by the cell again for its use or for different functions that it performs. Okay, now this one, for example, the release of energy during cellular respiration. You can see glucose plus oxygen is released, energy is released when carbon dioxide plus water is formed. Okay, so if whether it is written on the arrow, or sometimes it may be written after water. So the equation may be like glucose plus oxygen gives carbon dioxide plus water plus energy. Okay, so it may be like this, because energy is releasing, so it can be in the reactant product side. Okay, products are carbon dioxide, water, and energy. Sometimes the question may be asked, student, what is the product of cellular respiration, or the respiration taking place at the cell level? So you need to know that the products are carbon dioxide, water, and energy. What are products? That are released, that are the final outcome of a particular process. Okay, and what are the reactants? Means which form product? Reactants are glucose and oxygen. So you can see another equation, that is C6H12O6. This is glucose. Okay, students, and O2 is oxygen. It reacts with each other to form carbon dioxide CO2 to form and H2O. Okay, so glucose plus oxygen, it reacts and form carbon dioxide plus water, and this 6, it is just for balancing the equation. Okay, so I hope it is clear. This is the cellular respiration according to the equation also, and I hope it is clear to you theoretically also. So next, let's move on to the next one. After discussing the cellular respiration, let's discuss the types of respiration. Let's start. Students, basically two types of respiration we have to study. One is the aerobic respiration and another is the anaerobic respiration. Okay, let's take a look at the differences between those. Aerobic respiration, this kind of respiration takes place in the presence of oxygen. One is in the presence of oxygen and other is in the absence of oxygen. So aerobic is the presence of oxygen, and anaerobic respiration, it happens in the cell in the absence of oxygen. So two types of respiration, one in the presence of oxygen and two in the absence of oxygen. Sometimes, see students, it may happen that cell may does not get that oxygen, so respiration will take place. So there are two types now, okay, on the basis of presence of oxygen and the absence of oxygen. If cell does not get the oxygen, then it will perform anaerobic respiration. So the kind of respiration that takes place in the presence of oxygen is aerobic respiration, and the type of respiration that happens in the cell in the absence of oxygen is anaerobic respiration. Second, it leads to release of high amount of energy in living organism for aerobic. Okay, the previous equation that we looked or we saw, it was about aerobic respiration. Okay, it leads to release of high amount of energy, whereas the anaerobic respiration, it results in low amount of energy. Aerobic respiration examples are human beings and many other animals undergo aerobic respiration, whereas anaerobic, it is performed by yeast, and sometimes human beings undergo anaerobic respiration. I told you, if there is a certain condition, for example cell does not get the oxygen, we'll be discussing also that at what conditions, what are those particular conditions. Okay, so yeast and sometimes human beings also undergo anaerobic respiration. Fourth point, carbon dioxide and water are also released in aerobic respiration. I hope you just remember the equation that we just discussed. In that one, the products were carbon dioxide, water and energy. So that what the equation that we discussed was about aerobic respiration. In anaerobic respiration, they release lactic acid and yeast release ethanol and carbon dioxide in anaerobic respiration. So in animal cell, the product of anaerobic respiration is lactic acid, whereas in yeast the product of anaerobic respiration is ethanol and carbon dioxide. And if you compare it with aerobic respiration, the products in aerobic respiration are carbon dioxide, water and energy. Energy is released in both, but the difference is that aerobic has large amount, in aerobic the release of energy is of large amount, whereas in anaerobic the energy that is released in less in amount as compared to aerobic. So I hope students these differences are clear to you about aerobic and anaerobic respiration. Take a look at them again and then let's move forward. See students, you know why I give you time at this particular moment for reading? Because I want that once you have understood, and if you will read that again, then it will be easy for you to learn. Okay, otherwise what do we do, that just watching the video and we just try and we think that okay, once we have watched the video we have learned everything. No, it is not like that. You have to read it. Okay, so I just give the time so that you can concentrate on what has been taught. So I hope it is clear, aerobic and anaerobic respiration. Now this one was the reaction. This is the aerobic respiration in animals. This is now quite familiar to you. We just discussed this equation, that the glucose plus oxygen, that is C6H12O6 is the glucose, O2 is the oxygen. Okay, this 6 again I told you it is used for the balancing of the equation. Okay, so C6H12O6 is glucose, O2 is oxygen. These two react and form carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is better CO2, carbon dioxide, plus water H2O. Okay, plus energy that we discussed. So aerobic respiration, it releases a large amount of energy, and this equation is the example of aerobic respiration. Now here comes the anaerobic respiration. Glucose in the absence, because you can see in the reactant side now oxygen is not given, glucose, it breaks down to form ethanol plus carbon dioxide. Ethanol is C2H5OH. The formula for ethanol is C2H5OH plus carbon dioxide, that is 2CO2, or you can say just CO2 is the carbon dioxide. So now you can see the difference between aerobic respiration and the anaerobic respiration. In the aerobic respiration, the glucose is reacting in the presence of oxygen to give carbon dioxide and water, whereas in anaerobic respiration there is no oxygen, so the glucose just breaks into ethanol and carbon dioxide following in their respectively. Okay, So this is the main difference between aerobic respiration. Energy is released in both the processes, but I want to tell you again that in aerobic respiration the amount of energy is high, whereas the amount of energy in anaerobic is low. Okay, this is the main difference, and I hope the first point, that main difference is the presence and the absence of oxygen, and the next one important is the amount of energy that is released in both type of respiration. So I hope these two equations are clear to you, students. So this was what we were first in starting. We discussed about the introduction, that respiration, how do we get energy from the food, how does the food gets breakdown, and then we discussed the type of respiration. Okay, so the next part, or you can say the continuation of the chapter, will be done in the next video. Okay, till then students, you keep studying, stay inside your house and take care of yourselves. Thank you and have a nice day.